Hi everyone, and welcome to day 8, I think we're now on, of 12 days of enrichment feeding. It is currently New Year's Eve and I'm filming this. It should be released New Year's Day, so a Happy New Year to everybody. What we're going to look at today is nuts. So these are all nuts and shells, and they're a great form of enrichment, just even on their own. They're something that will take the rats a bit of work to get into. They'll practice their gnawing, they'll get lots of natural activities. They love them. It can take some rats that are not used to dealing with nuts in their shells a bit of time to kind of get the knack of them, but they're just brilliant on their own anyway, and I'm going to show you some different ways of displaying them. What I will say, if you're starting out with nuts and the rats are a little bit slow to grasp it, try starting off with a hazelnut. So they're very simple and easy, very thin shelled, and they get into them very quickly when they're used to it. And then we've got a few different nuts here. We've got good old walnut, which is big. Sometimes they get in very quickly with these, sometimes they stump them a bit because they have very smooth large shells and it can take them a little bit to get started. Once started they do get in fine. Almonds, and I should say that these are not bitter almonds. Bitter almonds are toxic, but if they're sold for human consumption, they're fine. So these are your normal kind of standard sweet almonds, and these are quite hard work to get into, and they can normally get purchase on them, but they're really tough shell. I don't know if you've ever tried cracking one, but they do take a bit of work. And I've also got Brazil nuts. So Brazil nuts have got a very tough shell as well. They're particularly nice. I quite like them. So apparently after Christmas I've only got one Brazil nut left, so the rats only get one of them. But yes, much like with us, rats do quite like this. And this time of year you can get bags of nuts in their shells around, usually at a reduced price as well, so it's a good time of year to think about it. So, different ways of showing these off. You can just give them as is, that's great, and they will enjoy them. Don't give them too often, I will say, with nuts, because they are high in protein and fats, which is great in small amounts, but not so good in large amounts. So, I don't know, let's say if you've got a pair of rats, a nut each, maybe once a month, something like that. You could probably give them more often, but you do have to kind of bear in mind the group and everything. So, that's kind of just on their own. Then, here's something that you can buy. So there are different ways of doing nuts. This is from one of my friends who runs the Rattery Orchard Rats, and she makes lots of different kind of hanging accessories and such, and here she's gone to the effort, and to be fair we can go to that effort too, of drilling a hole in all the nuts and then threading them on a wire with some beads, which is great. You can do it yourself, but it's faffy, so I choose to buy them. But this is a really good way of displaying nuts, and again it's great. You can hang it up in the cage, and it's a bit of work for the rats to get them off, and because it's threaded on wire, whereas I'd probably only think of string because I seem to naturally use string quite a lot, it will last quite a while, so they'll work hard to get that one off. So then there are other things you can do yourself. I like to try and show you some ways you can buy, some ways you can kind of do easily, and some of that's slightly more complicated. So a really simple one, and I got this off my friend Alison Campbell quite a few years ago actually. I can't remember exactly when, but it's a really nifty little trick that involves the good old toilet roll tube and some nuts. And actually, I will say on this one, Alison actually has a subscription service called Ratwise, and it links with her book Scuttling Gourmet, which is great on food if you're into it. I've got all of them, I think. I do use them a lot, they're great books. But a lot of my videos will go into the basics. The subscription service that Alison runs, Ratwise, that goes into kind of like the more detailed stuff, and I'm part of that. I learn quite a lot from it all the time. So if you're interested in taking things to the next step, it could be worth looking into that, as well as just having a read of a book, because if you like rat nutrition, it's brilliant. Right, so what are we going to do with the toilet roll tube? So the trick with the toilet roll tube is, what we're going to do is we're going to cut little rounds. I've made some earlier to try and save a bit of time, but each toilet roll tube will do you about 3 or 4, and it's fairly straightforward. Again, as with everything, the rats don't care if it doesn't look perfect, so we'll get ourselves some nice rounds, and then it's a case of getting a nut and then getting 3 of these rounds and just squishing them inside of each other. So if you see, I've got 2 inside there, and I'm going to put another one around the outside. It can be a little bit awkward, and I think I've probably cut these a little bit wide. But again, the rats won't care if it's not perfect. It's all about adding that extra challenge. So now what we've got there is kind of like a little ball made out of cardboard that they're going to have to work to try and get to that nut. So it adds a little extra bit of difficulty to them, a little gnawing, so they have to get the shell on the outside and then the shell off the actual nut on the inside, and then you've got a nice little ball thing. So this, we can add any kind of nut to that, maybe even a couple if it's a smallish nut. I'm currently struggling to get them in. And yeah, it's just a case of kind of adding those onto each other until you get these balls. This one's a bit tougher because it was a kitchen roll tube and it's a little bit harder, but that will also make it a little bit harder for them to get into. If you notice, it's slightly thicker cardboard. So there we've got another ball. Similar principle. I could make quite a few, but I'll just make those two for now and show you the next method. So they're great. They're kind of like a bit more difficult than a normal nut, but not that much more. They're ground toys for them. They can chase them around, and they can also, because the way the cardboard is, they can pick them up and bounce around with them, which is good. So next one. Now this just involves taking various bits of boxes, cardboards. I've got some slightly bigger tubes here. These are actually off the, if you've ever been to places with really big rolls, like my work has them, these are the kind of inside for them. I snaffle them from the cardboard bin. Keep your eyes peeled, but they're great because they're a little bit thicker than normal and quite strong as well. Really good for baby rats running through too, which is why I have quite a few in at the moment. So my idea with this was this is a great box, but it's quite thin on its own and it's quite easy for them to get into. So what I'm going to do is try and layer up the cardboard and make it increasingly difficult with the really good treat of some nuts on the inside. So my idea was I'm going to get a few nuts and hide them in the tubes with some of the stuffing in this one, because they fit nicely in the box. And in the other tube I'm going to put some hay in, which I do use an awful lot. You may be getting the impression of this. Put another couple of nuts in. So that nicely fits in the box. Then I'm just going to try and make it a bit more difficult by adding some cardboard in and around. That won't hopefully make it any more difficult for me to close the box, but it will make it more difficult for them to kind of get into it. I might stick some of them down there. So it's all layers of kind of challenge that they've got to get through. Then I'm going to close that one up with some difficulty because I've overstuffed it. Right, and then I might put a bit more card on it to make it extra difficult for them to get into. Basically what we're making with this is a bigger parcel, so that the rats have to do some work to get through. Duct tape. You can't be a rat owner unless you own at least one roll of duct tape. Think of it a bit like pass the parcel for rats. They've got to get through each of these layers to get to the little treat inside. So we've got that. That's a little bit harder. Might protect the edges with a little bit of card as well. If I was feeling really mean, I'd wrap the whole thing in duct tape lots and lots, but I'm not that bad. Not all the time anyway. So now we have an armoured box. And then last thing, I'm going to wrap it in a bit of paper. Now I don't expect them to figure this out straight away. This is something that I will leave in the cage for a period of time. They're not going to know there's going to be nuts in there. However, as you've probably picked up, my rats are quite used to kind of having challenges in their lives, so they're probably just going to want to chew in this just for the hell of it, to see what's going on. So over the next few days I will keep an eye on it and see when they do finally make it. And it'll be interesting to see if by the end of the 12 days they've actually got in and started to get to the nuts, or if they surprise me and actually manage to do it by tomorrow morning. You can see I'm not skilled at wrapping paper here. But again, the rats aren't going to care. And I've wrapped too many presents this year. Right, so there we have it. A nutty box for them, with a couple of these balls and their kind of fancy treat hanger. So that's it from the nuts. So I'm going to end the video and then we'll go and put some in the cage and see what they make of it. So the girls are all lined up and hungry. We shall see what they make of the nutty treats. Right, first of all I'm going to go for the fairly basic stuff. What's this? Don't fall off, Mog. Oh, yeah, straight away you can see that they quite like nuts. They have had quite a few in their lives. I should have done more than 3. In fact, let's just try and limit the fights that are going to break out. So let's put some more on there. Let's put that there. I suspect they're probably going to be occupied by these for a little while. And I'm going to stick their parcel downstairs for them to find later. But I think we can safely say that it's a bit of a success. I might show somebody these nuts. What's this? What's that, Monster? To say, since Monster's my kind of like slightly frailer one. See what she thinks of it. No, you're not bothered. You're not hungry, Missy. Oh no, she is. Tato, what's this? What's this? Come on. Ooh, many nuts. They may decide it's slightly too hard work. They will, as they've proved in other days, they generally go for the bit that kind of they can get to the fastest first. But it should definitely keep them entertained. Right, I'm going to end the video for now because I've gone on for long enough. Have a lovely new year again and see you tomorrow.